It begins with a silhouette, long, deliberate, and confident. A machine built not for flash, but for quiet dominance. Not to shout speed, but to exude control. You can imagine the sound before you even hear it. A soft thud as the door closes, sealing you inside a world where precision feels like luxury itself. It's a statement from an era when craftsmanship mattered more than algorithms, when the measure of success wasn't software updates, but the weight of steel and the smoothness of leather. This car represented the apex of its maker's philosophy, engineered to convey power through restraint and authority through silence. It carried executives, dignitaries, and dreamers alike, each convinced they'd found the perfect balance between performance and poise. And yet, beneath that calm surface lies a deeper story, one of ambition, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of perfection that changed what luxury meant forever. Before we open that door and step inside its world, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment which automotive icon you want to see next. The Mercedes 500 SEL W126 didn't just arrive, it was calculated, crafted, and executed like a mission. By the late 1970s, Mercedes-Benz faced a crossroads. The oil crisis had humbled automakers worldwide. Luxury was suddenly under scrutiny, and technology was racing ahead faster than boardrooms could adapt. The 500 SEL W126 became the brand's answer to that challenge. A flagship sedan engineered not merely to impress, but to define what modern luxury would look and feel like for the next decade. This wasn't a reaction to the times, it was a deliberate reset of expectations. Its designers, led by Bruno Sacco, understood the cultural shift. Excess was out, intelligence was in. So instead of sharp chrome and ornamental grills, the 500 SEL arrived with aerodynamics inspired by wind tunnels and restraint baked into every line. Its shape wasn't showy, it was efficient, sculpted to cheat air and reduce fuel use while maintaining road presence. That balance became its signature. Dignified but not dull, opulent but not loud. Owners didn't buy this car to be seen, they bought it to be understood. Every decision behind the 500 SEL W126 reflected Mercedes-Benz's obsession with engineering discipline. The body used lighter, stronger steel to offset stricter fuel standards. The suspension fused comfort and control with an almost surgical precision. Inside, the cabin felt more like a command post than a lounge, ergonomics over ornamentation, durability over decor. Even the wood trim was restrained, satin finished instead of glossy, because reflection could distract the driver. That was the mindset. Form followed function, and function had to be perfect. Engineers designed the dashboard layout after studying pilot cockpits. Every switch fell within natural reach. Airbags and anti-lock brakes, technology still rare in the early 80s, were quietly introduced as standard features, not bragging points. Mercedes didn't market safety as innovation. They treated it as obligation. The result was a sedan that felt more advanced than most cars a decade newer, but technology alone didn't define the 500 SEL W126. Its soul came from its drivetrain, a 5.0-liter V8 that balanced smoothness and authority. It didn't roar. It hummed with confidence. The transmission shifted almost imperceptibly, as if reading the driver's intent. At highway speeds, the cabin remained hushed, wind noise practically erased. This serenity wasn't accidental. It was engineered, refined through hundreds of hours of testing across autobahns, deserts, and Arctic roads. The engineers called it Sonderklasse, the special class, and the 500 SEL was its purest expression. Every mile reinforced that this wasn't transportation. It was an experience of control, isolation, and precision. Yet what truly set the 500 SEL apart was its cultural resonance. In the 1980s, power was visual. Skyscrapers, tailored suits, mirrored sunglasses, but this car represented power differently. It didn't scream wealth. It whispered authority. CEOs, diplomats, and global elites gravitated toward it because it projected calm command. You didn't flaunt success in a 500 SEL, you verified it. In a decade defined by flash, that kind of restraint was revolutionary. It became the unspoken uniform of influence, parked outside embassies and boardrooms alike. Even Hollywood noticed. Villains and visionaries drove the same car because it symbolized control, not chaos. Owning a Mercedes 500 SEL W126 wasn't just about prestige, it was about trust. The ownership experience was one of endurance. The doors closed with a precision that became a signature sound. The steering felt heavy but deliberate. The seats were firm but supportive after hours on the road. Maintenance wasn't cheap, but reliability was legendary. This was a car built to last decades, not years. Many early owners kept them for a generation, passing them down like family heirlooms. In Europe, taxi versions of its smaller siblings routinely crossed 500,000 miles without major rebuilds, proof that the philosophy worked. That promise of permanence became a selling point as rivals chased fashion. Still, Mercedes knew perfection had its limits. The cost of producing the 500 SEL W126 was enormous. Each car was practically hand-finished to meet self-imposed standards. The margins were slim, but the prestige payoff was priceless. Internally, executives debated how far to push technology without alienating traditional buyers. Could luxury coexist with austerity? Could efficiency feel elegant? The W126 answered with a quiet yes. It wasn't trying to please everyone. It was teaching the world what German luxury meant. Confidence through craftsmanship, leadership through logic. As the 1980s unfolded, the 500-cell W126 became a global ambassador for this ethos. From Beverly Hills to Berlin, it was recognized instantly, not for excess, but for its silhouette of discipline. In Japan, its formality resonated deeply with cultural sensibilities. In the US, it symbolized financial power tempered by taste. The car didn't just sell, it defined aspiration. And behind that success lay Mercedes-Benz's unyielding conviction that the best car in the world wasn't the fastest or the flashiest. It was the one that made you feel safest, smartest, and most in control. That's what the 500 cell embodied. Yet beneath the surface of this calm, an interesting tension brewed. The luxury market was changing. Electronics and gadgets were becoming status symbols. Other manufacturers experimented with digital dashboards and computer-controlled suspension. Mercedes resisted the urge to chase trends. The W126 remained analog at heart, its innovations hidden beneath timeless design. That resistance was risky. It could have made the car seem dated, but instead it aged gracefully. Its minimalism, once viewed as conservative, became its greatest strength. Owners loved that everything worked intuitively. No fuss, no gimmicks. Every element of the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 was designed with purpose. Even the chrome strips were calibrated for visual balance, not decoration. Its stance, low, wide, but never aggressive, communicated assurance. The aerodynamics, honed through early wind tunnel research, helped it slice through air with efficiency rare for its size. It wasn't a driver's car in the traditional sense. It was a commander's car. You didn't attack corners. You owned lanes. It made long-distance travel effortless, transforming stress into serenity. On highways, it cruised at triple-digit speeds all day without breaking a sweat. Yet around town, it carried itself with quiet dignity. Designers obsessed over sensory details that most buyers never noticed consciously. The resistance in each button, the muted click of a vent control, the smell of the leather, all meticulously tuned. Even the suspension geometry was engineered to deliver the same ride comfort, whether the car carried one passenger or five. This attention to invisible quality made the 500 SEL feel indestructible. Years later, even worn examples retain that vault-like sensation. Close the door, and you can still feel the over-engineering. It's the tactile memory of an era when Mercedes built cars to a standard, not a price. But no masterpiece exists in isolation. The 500 SEL W126 had to navigate changing emissions laws, rising insurance rates, and evolving consumer expectations. Each revision, new engines, improved safety features, subtle styling updates, showed Mercedes' ability to evolve without compromise. By the late 1980s, while rivals chased new shapes and flashier interiors, the W126 remained steadfast, evolving quietly but effectively. Its final iterations perfected what the first had promised: timeless sophistication through technical excellence. The story of the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 is, ultimately, the story of how rationality became beautiful. It captured an age when engineers, not marketers, dictated luxury. And in doing so, it set a benchmark that still defines expectations today. Yet that dominance came with pressure, the need to stay ahead without losing identity. How did Mercedes keep that balance as rivals caught up and the world's taste for luxury began to shift? That's the turning point where the W126's quiet reign met its greatest test, and that's where we pick up next. By the time the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 reached the midpoint of its production run, it had already conquered the global luxury market. But sustaining that dominance was another challenge entirely. The 1980s were changing fast. Economic booms created new buyers, and these buyers wanted luxury that felt personal, not institutional. The 500 SEL W126 entered this phase as both a symbol and a target, admired for its engineering purity, but also criticized by some as aloof, too formal, too traditional. That perception would test Mercedes-Benz's confidence in its own philosophy. The Mercedes 500 SEL W126 had become more than a sedan. It was a political and cultural statement. Diplomats and leaders across continents used it as official transport. Corporate fleets in Europe and the US adopted it as a status symbol, but with prominence came scrutiny. Environmental regulations tightened, and rival luxury brands, especially those from Japan, began introducing smoother electronics, digital dashboards, and softer aesthetics. Against this backdrop, the 500 SEL had to prove that substance still mattered more than flash. Mercedes doubled down, refining its mechanical systems instead of chasing gadgets. While others installed touchscreens and synthetic chimes, Stuttgart focused on perfecting fuel injection, anti-lock braking, and crash structures. It worked. The W126 earned a reputation for being bulletproof in reliability and restraint. Fleet managers swore by its longevity. Chauffeurs valued its comfort and simplicity. In the US, executives loved that it projected success without arrogance, exactly the image corporate America wanted during a decade obsessed with optics. Yet quietly, a new wave of buyers began asking for more emotion, more personality in their cars. The question loomed: could rational engineering still win hearts in an age of sensory excess? The 500 SEL W126 responded with subtle evolution. Mid-cycle updates improved performance, emissions, and efficiency. Mercedes fine-tuned the V8's injection system and refined aerodynamics for even quieter cruising. The car's restraint became its rebellion. It refused to age. In an era when design trends shifted every 2 years, the W126's line stayed confident, its silhouette unaltered. Owners appreciated that steadiness. It made the car feel timeless. Collectors today often point to that consistency as its greatest strength, the way it resisted fads and defined its own rhythm. Underneath its calm surface, the 500 SL W126 also became a surprising icon among enthusiasts. Tuners like AMG, before becoming part of Mercedes officially, recognized its potential. The 5.0-liter V8 was already robust, but AMG's magic turned it into a 300-horsepower Autobahn stormer. These versions, discreetly modified yet brutally quick, became legends in their own right. They took the W126's composure and injected a dose of controlled fury. For many, that combination, luxury on the outside, menace underneath, captured the decade's dual nature perfectly. Yet even those AMG variants retained the car's defining trait: dignity. In the United States, the 500 SEL W126 embodied a new kind of aspiration. It wasn't about flamboyance like some American luxury sedans of the era. It was about credibility. The car's build quality impressed even skeptics of European imports. Owners often described it as a lifelong investment rather than a purchase. Dealership service experiences were famously meticulous, reflecting the brand's commitment to its top-tier customers. For many executives and entertainers, driving a 500 SEL wasn't a status move. It was a lifestyle choice that said, "I care about how things are made." Meanwhile, in Europe, the 500 SEL played a more subtle but equally powerful role. It served as a diplomat's favorite, a chauffeured ministerial vehicle, a discreet expression of influence in societies that valued understatement. The car's presence outside embassies and parliament buildings wasn't accidental. It was strategic. Mercedes-Benz had engineered a car that felt neutral yet authoritative, blending seamlessly into the architecture of power. Even in film and television, its appearances often framed it as a symbol of control, intellect, and sometimes moral ambiguity. The 500 SL was a prop for seriousness. Still, time never stands still. By the late 1980s, the luxury landscape had begun to tilt. A new generation of buyers, many younger and more global, saw cars as extensions of identity rather than instruments of transport. Japanese manufacturers entered the luxury market, challenging German dominance with quieter cabins, advanced electronics, and competitive pricing. The W126 had to prove that its old-school craftsmanship still justified its premium. Mercedes engineers answered with refinement, not reinvention. They introduced improved climate control, better sound insulation, and subtle electronic aids, all hidden beneath familiar design. This evolutionary approach reflected deep confidence in the original concept. While other cars reinvented themselves, the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 simply matured. Its focus remained unshaken. Make the driver feel secure, capable, and in command. Every update, stronger safety beams, adaptive suspension tweaks, emission compliance, was invisible to the untrained eye, yet crucial to its longevity. That strategy paid off spectacularly. Buyers trusted it because it didn't try to dazzle. It simply worked. The W126 became the rare luxury car that grew more respected as it aged, not less. As its production years stretched on, the 500 SEL W126 became something of a paradox, a flagship that defied obsolescence. When its successor, the W140, was introduced in the early 90s with more technology and bulk, many critics argued that the older car had been the purer achievement. The 500 CL W126 represented a peak, where analog craftsmanship met modern sensibility before complexity began to dominate. That reputation only strengthened over time. Even today, owners often describe the W126 as the last Mercedes built without compromise. But it wasn't just engineering that sustained the legend, it was emotion, the kind that builds over countless experiences. Drivers remembered the subtle firmness of its steering, the way it shrugged off long distances without fatigue. Passengers recalled the serenity of its cabin, the solid thunk of its doors, the restrained scent of high-grade leather. These sensations forged loyalty that transcended brand marketing. The W126 didn't demand attention. It earned devotion. Throughout its life, the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 bridged worlds, tradition and modernity, restraint and status, logic and emotion. It carried business magnates, artists, and world leaders with equal composure. It survived recessions, oil crises, and shifting tastes not by adapting too quickly, but by staying true to its essence. Its impact reached far beyond showrooms. It influenced how luxury itself was defined in America and abroad. That influence rippled across decades. Future flagship sedans, German or otherwise, borrowed its DNA, the blend of subtle design, advanced safety, and unflappable comfort. Even as cars became more digital, more interactive, designers still reference the W126's purity of form. It taught the industry that true prestige doesn't age because it isn't trend-driven. It's principle-driven. Yet behind the reverence, one question remains. Why does the 500 SEL W126 still hold such emotional power decades later? Perhaps because it captured a kind of trust that modern technology can't replicate. Its solidity wasn't simulated. It was built. It represented a time when confidence came from craftsmanship, not code. That's why collectors, enthusiasts, and everyday drivers continue to seek them out, restoring and preserving them like mechanical heirlooms. As the world moved into the digital age, the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 stood as a reminder that real luxury comes from restraint, not excess. But to fully understand its lasting legacy, we need to explore what it left behind, the blueprint it created for everything that followed, and how its influence continues to shape the cars of today. That's the story waiting in the next chapter. The Mercedes 500 SEL W126 may have completed its production run more than 3 decades ago, but its shadow still stretches across every modern luxury sedan that followed. To understand why, you have to look at what it accomplished and what it refused to become. When the W126 left showrooms in 1991, it wasn't just the end of a model cycle. It was the end of an era where engineering ruled unchallenged. The 500 SEL represented Mercedes-Benz at its most self-assured, before marketing and technology began steering the brand. That's why the 500 SEL W126 remains such a touchstone today. It embodied a philosophy that modern cars still chase but rarely capture. The 500 SEL W126 was built to outlast its owners, and many have. In Europe and the US, examples with hundreds of thousands of miles continue to start, idle and glide with eerie smoothness. This longevity isn't nostalgia, it's design intent. Mercedes engineers didn't design for obsolescence. They designed for permanence. They overbuilt mechanical systems, used galvanized steel against corrosion, and designed electronics that could be serviced, not replaced. That's why enthusiasts often call it the last heirloom Mercedes. It was engineered to survive a lifetime of use and then some. Modern cars, for all their sophistication, rarely make that claim. But the 500 SEL W126's legacy goes beyond durability. It shaped how the industry defines luxury. Before it, opulence meant ornamentation. After it, luxury meant silence, safety, and precision. The W126 established the idea that comfort wasn't just plushness, it was predictability. No surprises, no quirks, just a sense that every part of the car had been tested to exhaustion. Even the smallest details, like how air flowed over the mirrors or how seat foam aged under stress, were studied. That quiet thoroughness rewired consumer expectations. Buyers began to equate German luxury with engineering purity, and that association persists today. Every brand that came after had to respond to what the 500 SEL W126 achieved. Some tried to outdo it with technology. Others competed with price or style. Yet, no matter the approach, they all measured themselves against its standard of composure. In Japan, new luxury divisions took notes from its balance of prestige and understatement. In the US, domestic automakers studied its refinement as a benchmark for quality. Even as technology advanced, introducing adaptive suspensions, touchscreens, and semi-autonomous systems, the fundamental questions the W126 raised never changed. Is it built to last? Does it feel trustworthy? Does it carry authority without shouting? The car's reputation aged gracefully because its design aged honestly. There's a reason the 500 SL W126 still looks relevant today. It was designed for proportion, not trend. Bruno Sacco's horizontal harmony philosophy ensured that every line related logically to the next, making the shape immune to fashion. That's why, decades later, it doesn't look vintage, it looks inevitable. Collectors appreciate this integrity. They know that when a car's design language stems from function, time only sharpens its appeal. In a world where styling often changes yearly, the W126 feels like a statement of permanence. Its presence in modern culture endures for that same reason. When film directors want to evoke quiet authority, a figure who doesn't need to prove their status, they often choose a Mercedes 500 SEL W126. The car has transcended its time to become cinematic shorthand for competence, control, and confidence. Even in an age obsessed with digital prestige, its analog dignity resonates. People instinctively trust it. From a mechanical perspective, the W126 also left behind a template for engineering restraint. The car's systems were advanced for the time, but never experimental. Mercedes introduced safety and convenience technologies only when they were proven to enhance reliability, not just novelty. That balance between innovation and dependability became a blueprint many automakers still follow. The focus wasn't on the newest feature, it was on the best solution. That principle is echoed today in every manufacturer that prioritizes refinement over spectacle. But the most enduring part of the Mercedes 500 SL W126's story is what it represents emotionally. It symbolizes the intersection between power and peace, the feeling of being protected from the chaos outside. Inside its cabin, everything feels deliberate. The muted thud of doors, the hushed engine, the steady steering. You don't just drive a 500 SL, you inhabit it. In that sense, it delivers something rare even now, a sense of psychological security. That's what luxury truly means, and few cars before or since have delivered it with such consistency. For modern enthusiasts, the 500 SEL W126 is more than a classic. It's a lesson. It shows that progress doesn't always mean adding complexity. Sometimes it means perfecting what already works. The W126 reached a point of balance between analog feel and modern comfort, between mechanical precision and emotional calm, that newer models struggle to replicate. The world changed, regulations tightened, tastes evolved, but the essence of the W126 remains timeless. Do everything quietly, flawlessly, and without compromise. Restorers and collectors who preserve these cars today aren't just maintaining machines, they're preserving a mindset. They understand that this sedan represents a high watermark of automotive honesty before marketing dictated design and before software replaced soul. Each restored 500 SEL W126 that rolls out of a workshop is more than a car. It's a reminder of how excellence once felt. The car's influence even seeps into the electric era. As automakers design battery-powered luxury sedans, they still chase that same serenity the 500 SEL W126 perfected decades ago. Whisper-quiet propulsion, seamless ride quality, and imperceptible transitions, all hallmarks of the W126 experience, are now reinterpreted in digital form. In that way, the car's spirit has outlived combustion itself. Its DNA continues to inform the definition of comfort, regardless of power source. In its time, the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 answered a simple but profound question. What does it mean to make the best car in the world? Its answer wasn't about horsepower or price or status, it was about mastery. Every element, from the thickness of its glass to the firmness of its switchgear, existed because it improved the experience, not because it photographed well. That level of discipline made it the ultimate expression of German luxury, and the reason it still inspires engineers today. Looking back, it's clear that the W126 didn't just define its generation, it bridged eras. It stood at the point where mechanical precision met human comfort, where luxury transitioned from extravagance to intelligence. For Mercedes-Benz, it remains a benchmark, a standard by which every flagship since has been judged. And for enthusiasts, it's a reminder of what happens when a company builds without compromise, guided only by the pursuit of perfection. Even now, when you see one gliding through traffic or parked quietly under a streetlight, it doesn't look old, it looks inevitable, as if the world still revolves around the standard it set. That's the power of the Mercedes 500 SEL W126. A car so complete, time couldn't move past it, only around it. And that's why decades later its legend continues, not as nostalgia, but as proof that true excellence never fades. For anyone in the US looking at the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 today, the question isn't whether it's iconic, that's a given. It's whether owning one still makes sense. The answer depends on what you value. If you expect modern convenience, touchscreens, or instant gratification, it may feel like a relic. But if you appreciate craftsmanship that endures, a mechanical calm that modern cars can't replicate, and a sense of timeless dignity, the 500 SEL remains one of the most rewarding sedans ever built. Its legacy isn't just historical, it's experiential. Finding a well-preserved example has become harder, but not impossible. Many US cars were babied by their first owners, kept garaged and serviced by Mercedes specialists. European imports, especially gray market 500 SELs with more power and options, also occasionally surface, though their paperwork and emissions compliance can be tricky. Prices vary wildly depending on condition. Pristine examples now command collector attention, while neglected ones tempt buyers with low entry costs but steep restoration bills. The key is inspection. A 500 SL W126 can outlast its peers, but deferred maintenance turns it from timeless machine to expensive project fast. Reliability remains one of its strongest virtues. The V8 is known for longevity when serviced correctly, and the transmission, properly maintained, shifts with fluid precision even after decades. Electrical gremlins are rare compared to its successors, though aging rubber, vacuum systems, and climate controls require patience and expertise. Parts availability is still decent thanks to Mercedes' heritage support, and the enthusiast community keeps knowledge alive through forums and specialists. For those willing to invest time and care, ownership feels more like stewardship. Driving one in the modern world is a revelation. The Mercedes 500 SEL W126 may be large, but it doesn't feel cumbersome. It feels deliberate. On highways, it glides effortlessly, the ride's soft but never floaty. Around town, it moves with quiet authority, the steering firm and precise. Modern traffic doesn't diminish its grace, it enhances it. You sense its purpose, its refusal to rush. It reminds you that progress once meant refinement, not distraction. It's a car that makes you slow down and appreciate distance again. From an investment perspective, the W126 sits in a sweet spot. Prices have risen steadily but remain approachable compared to more flamboyant classics. Collectors value originality, untouched interiors, matching numbers, complete service records. Modifications, unless period-correct AMG work, can lower value. But regardless of market trends, what owners consistently describe is emotional return. The satisfaction of driving something that feels alive yet indestructible, elegant yet understated. It's luxury without pretense. For American enthusiasts used to flashier vehicles, the 500 SEL W126 offers a different kind of prestige. Quiet confidence. It's not about attracting attention, it's about earning respect. It fits modern roads as gracefully as it did in the 80s, its design still balanced, its engineering still relevant. And when you close that heavy door, you feel the same reassuring solidity that once convinced the world this was the best car money could buy. Ultimately, The Mercedes 500 SEL W126 represents something larger than nostalgia. It's proof that great design transcends decades, that restraint can be more powerful than excess. It reminds us that the pinnacle of automotive achievement isn't about flash or digital trickery, but about how a car makes you feel mile after mile. Even now, no other sedan captures that blend of presence, precision, and peace so completely. If you're lucky enough to find one and disciplined enough to care for it, the reward isn't just ownership, it's participation in a legacy. You become part of a lineage of craftsmanship, engineering, and quiet excellence that shaped the meaning of luxury itself. And that's why, when the last modern sensor fails and the newest flagship sedan fades from memory, the Mercedes 500 SEL W126 will still matter. Because it didn't chase the future, it built it.